former Bolingbrook, Illinois police sergeant who was found guilty in 2012 of the murder of his third wife, Kathleen Savio, just a few months after their 2003 divorce. Peterson first received national publicity in 2007 when his fourth wife, Stacey Ann Cales Peterson, disappeared. Although the police and Stacey Ann's family suspect foul play, she has never been found. Suspicions in Stacey Ann's case were fueled in part by the death of Savio, whose bruised body was found in a bathtub in her home in 2004 with a large gash through her scalp. Initially, Savio's official cause of death was found to be accidental drowning. In 2009, in light of Stacey Ann's disappearance, Peterson was indicted for Savio's murder after a second autopsy showed the evidence of a struggle. Upon conviction, he was sentenced to 38 years in prison on February 21, 2013. On February 9, 2015, Peterson was charged with 2 additional felonies, solicitation of murder and solicitation of murder for hire, for attempting to have James Glasgow, the state attorney handling his prosecution, killed. Peterson was convicted on May 31, 2016 and sentenced to an additional 40 years on July 29, 2016. On February 21, 2017, he was transferred from Illinois Department of Corrections to United States Penitentiary in Terre Haute, Indiana. In December 2019, Peterson was transferred to an undisclosed out-of-state facility. Drew Peterson was born in Bolingbrook, Illinois, a suburb of Chicago, on January 5, 1954. He graduated in 1972 from Willowbrook High School in Villa Park, Illinois, where he ran cross-country. He joined the United States Army after graduation and briefly attended the College of DuPage in 1974, before moving to Falls Church, Virginia to train as a military officer. Peterson began his 33-year career with the Bolingbrook Police Department in 1977. In 1978, he was assigned to the Metropolitan Area Narcotics Squad, and in 1979 he received a Police Officer of the Year award from the department. Peterson retired on November 6, 2007 at the age of 53 with the rank of sergeant and was given a tax-free $79,000 a year pension, almost $6,600 a month. His pension was terminated following his second conviction in May 2016. Now on to his wives. If it were not for the disappearance of his current wife, Kathleen Savio's case would probably never have been solved. On March 1st, 2004, Savio's nude body was found in a dry bathtub in the primary suite of the home. Less than a month later, Peterson put the house up for sale. He did not mention Savio's death to new owners, claiming that he was only selling the house because his children enjoyed swimming in the pool at the secondary residence down the street. Savio's death was initially ruled an accidental drowning by a coroner's jury that included a police officer who personally knew Peterson and assured the jurors that he was a good man who would never hurt his wife. However, following Stacey Peterson's disappearance, Savio's body was exhumed and underwent forensic examination on November 16, 2007. Michael Baden, a former New York City medical examiner who conducted the examination at the request of Savio's relatives and Fox News, concluded that she died of drowning following a struggle when her body was placed in the bathtub. Post-mortem photos showed extensive bruising and scraping to her back, torso, face, and as well as a large unexplained gash in her scalp. The results of the official autopsy ordered by the county have not been released to the public. Will County State's Attorney James Glasgow told the press that after examining the evidence in the case, he believed that the death was a homicide staged to look like an accident. On February 21, 2008, Glasgow announced that a pathologist has determined that Savio's death was a homicide, adding that the death had been investigated as such since reopening the case following the exhumation. Reverend Neil Shorty, a pastor at Stacy Peterson's church, reported that Stacy had told him that Drew had killed Savio and had made it look like an accident, and that she was afraid of her husband. Stacy had provided Drew's alibi for his whereabouts on the evening of Savio's death. Peterson's trial, proceeding in July 2012, was jeopardized when a prosecutor attempted to introduce evidence that was not allowed. The Chicago Tribune reported that the judge would rule on a mistrial on August 2nd, 2012. On August 15th, Peterson told the judge that he wanted to withdraw a request for a mistrial. His lawyer said that he wanted the current jury to decide if he killed his third wife. On September 6th, Peterson was convicted of killing Savio. On February 21st, 2013, he was denied a mistrial and sentenced to 38 years in prison. At age 49, Peterson married 19-year-old hotel receptionist Stacey Ann Cales on October 18, 2003, and she subsequently changed her name to Peterson. Stacey's mother, Christy, had previously been reported missing in 1998, although the two cases are not believed to be linked. Described as a troubled teenager, Cales began dating Peterson at the age of 17, with her father's permission, while Peterson was still married to Kathleen Savio. The couple lived at 6 Peasant Chase Court in Bolingbrook, Illinois, less than a mile from the home he formerly shared with Savio. Together, they had 2 children, Anthony and Lacey. Stacy legally adopted Savio's children and treated them like they were her own. She was close to completing her nursing degree from Joliet Junior College at the time of her disappearance on Sunday, October 28, 2007. Stacy was officially reported missing in the early hours of Monday, October 29th, after her sister Cassandra Cales failed to hear from her when expected. Peterson's claims that Stacy called him at 9 p.m. on Sunday to tell him that she had left him for another man and that she had left her 2002 Pontiac Grand Am at Bolingbrook Clow International Airport. Stacy is still considered a missing person. Her family had launched a website to help find her. While talking with Marsha Clark during Marsha Clark Investigates, the First 48, defense attorney Joel Brodsky claimed to know what happened to Stacy, and he believes that after Drew passes away, Stacy will be found. However, he refused to elaborate further. Several leads were followed by the investigation of the Illinois State Police with FBI involvement. 4 search warrants were issued and carried out on Peterson's property following Stacy's disappearance, including the seizure of his firearms and both his and Stacy's vehicles. Peterson announced his plans to retire as a Bolingbrook police sergeant effective December 2007. On November 15th, the Bolingbrook Police Pension Board voted to allow Peterson to collect his pension of $6,067.71 per month, stating current law gave them no option as he had not been convicted of a crime. Rick Mims, Peterson's longtime friend, admitted that he and Peterson bought 3 blue plastic containers from a cable company where they both worked part-time in 2003 and provided photos of these containers to police. Mims also sold his story to the tabloid newspapers for an undisclosed sum of money. Peterson's stepbrother, Thomas Morphy, who had a history of drug and alcohol addiction, attempted suicide 2 days after allegedly helping Peterson carry a plastic container from Peterson's Bolingbrook home to his SUV, fearing that he may have helped dispose of Stacy's body. Neighbors reported seeing Peterson and another man hauling a 55-gallon barrel, large enough to hold a person, out of the house shortly after the disappearance. Cassandra Cales, Stacy's sister, said that she wanted Peterson to take a lie detector test about his knowledge of the blue container that she saw in his garage 2 days before Stacy disappeared. Joel Brodsky, Peterson's attorney, denied that any container was missing from Peterson's home. There were also reports of truckers referring to the containers, but their stories were treated as not credible after it was discovered that they had not been in Bolingbrook area at the time they claimed. On January 23, 2008, Peterson and his attorney Joel Brodsky called into the show of Chicago radio personality Steve Dahl, who had been lampooning Peterson since the case began. Brodsky suggested that Dahl host an on-air dating game with Peterson the following day, but WJMK managers and Dahl decided not to go through with it. Peterson appeared on CNN's Larry King Live on April 11, 2008, with Brodsky again present to advise which questions Peterson should answer. The interview ran on May 9, 2009, 2 days after Peterson's arrest. Peterson subsequently made guest appearances, including one from the county jail, on radio station WLS-AM with Mancow Muller. After that radio appearance, Will County Judge Stephen White severely limited Peterson's access to media. I have no idea what women see in this man. He is a total dumpster fire. It's amazing. Example, in December 2008, Peterson's publicist Glenn Sieg confirmed Peterson was engaged to a 23-year-old Christina Raines. She would have been his fifth wife. On January 30, 2009, it was made public that Raines had moved out of Peterson's house. Her father, Ernie Raines, had issued an ultimatum to his daughter out of concern about the way Peterson tried to control her and what he feared Peterson would do. Raines moved out of Peterson's home when she came to her senses, calling the engagement a publicity stunt designed to keep Peterson in the media spotlight. On May 7, 2009, Peterson was indicted by a Will County grand jury and arrested for the murder of Kathleen Savio. Bail was set at $20 million. In October 2009, Peterson sued J.P. Morgan Chase for revoking a home equity credit line he wanted to use to pay his legal expenses, claiming his income of nearly $109,000 per year wasn't insufficient. In July 2010, Judge White ruled that Peterson would remain in the Will County Jail during his trial and appeals process. Prosecutors argued that he could pose a threat if released. On July 21, 2010, it was revealed that hearsay statements indicating Peterson killed two of his wives were not reliable enough for a jury to hear at trial. After presiding over a lengthy hearing, Judge White issued in May a 4-page sealed ruling obtained by the Daily Herald. White ruled that the prosecutors proved Peterson killed both Savio and Stacy by a preponderance of the evidence. But nearly all statements attributed to Stacy do not provide sufficient safeguards of reliability. The standard of proof in homicide cases is beyond a reasonable doubt. Preponderance of statements were crucial to the prosecution's case as it lacked significant direct evidence. In April 2012, an Illinois appellate court ruled that prosecutors could use 8 statements by the victim before her death and by Peterson's still missing fourth wife Stacy before her disappearance. Peterson's defense had contended that introduction of these alleged hearsay comments constituted a violation of his Sixth Amendment right to confront witnesses testifying against him. As if he didn't already seem guilty enough, on August 22, 2012, Jeff Proctor, a witness in Peterson's murder trial, said Peterson offered him $25,000 to hire someone to kill Savio and told him it would be a secret that he would take to his grave. Oh boy. On September 6, 2012, Peterson was found guilty of premeditated murder of Savio. Jurors admitted that the most compelling evidence was based on hearsay statements allowed under Drew's law. On February 21, 2013, Peterson was sentenced to 38 years in prison for the murder of his third wife. He was incarcerated at Menard Correctional Center in Chester, Illinois, but later moved to the Federal Correction Institute in Terre Haute, Indiana. Within a month, he was attacked by another prisoner who hoped to sell his belongings on eBay. After a number of appeals, on September 21st, 2017, the Illinois Supreme Court upheld the conviction. In December 2019, Peterson was released from federal custody and transferred to a state facility outside of Illinois. His location is not being disclosed for security reasons. On February 9th, 2015, Peterson was charged with attempting to put a hit on James Glasgow, the Chicago area lead prosecutor in the murder trial, after a fellow inmate tipped off prosecutors to the plan and wore a wire to capture evidence against Peterson. In May 2016, he was found guilty of solicitation of murder and solicitation of murder for hire. He was subsequently sentenced to an additional 40 years in prison. I'm laughing not because the murder for hire. I'm laughing because this man is so stupid. It's just unreal. Like, come on. In May 2022, it was revealed that Drew Peterson's former defense attorney, Joel Brodsky, is considering the release of confidential information protected by attorney-client privilege. Stacey Peterson's sister, Cassandra, was annoyed by the possibility that Brodsky could face legal penalties for revealing such information, which she felt may be needed to solve Stacey's cold case. Cassandra argued that she would stand by Brodsky and support his actions if he came forward. Brodsky has temporarily lost his legal license in 2019 for reasons unrelated to the Drew Peterson case, and is under a continued gag order not to disclose anything Drew Peterson shared with him in confidentiality. It is unclear if Brodsky actually knows anything about the whereabouts of Stacey Peterson, although he has claimed that he does, stating, "I know everything about both of his wives. Everything. I feel bad about Drew still not taking responsibility and Stacey being missing. I'm thinking about maybe revealing what happened to Stacey and where she is." In closing, this case is such a frickin' mess. We're lucky that he even was prosecuted and able to stay in jail because of all the missteps by both sides. Stacey's body still has not been found. The family still hopes that somehow someone knows and they come forward. As far as Drew goes, he's a dumbass. And he abused all of his wives. There's 911 calls that prove that. And he's just crazy. Like, I don't know why he thought that he could get away with all these things. The biggest thing that pissed me off was that Savio was found to have accidentally drowned in an empty bathtub with no water. Look, who was this medical examiner? Oh, God. Anyway, I appreciate y'all tuning in today. I'm going to start making podcasts more frequently. But I just had to put this case up here just because it's so ridiculous and he's ridiculous and stupid. Thank you for tuning in to Southern Fried Felonies. See you next week.